Okay, I think we've got this set up to go. Welcome to the introductory webinar for the 500 Communities program. This session will be about 45 minutes and we'll have time for questions toward the end. You can submit your questions by using the button at the bottom of the screen, of your Zoom screen there. So let's get going. Imagine a world where co-housing becomes the new normal. Imagine if every town of more than 50,000 people had at least one senior and one intergenerational community. Imagine creating the next 500 socially and environmentally sustainable communities in the United States over the next 5 years. And what about Canada? And what about the rest of the world? We all need community. If this is to become a reality, many people with many talents must get involved. Imagine a co-housing consulting collaborative of independent contractors that work together. Hello, I'm Katie McCamant, and I've been making my living as a co-housing consultant, architect, and developer since 1987. My work in this field over the last 3 decades has confirmed my belief that living in community can better people's lives and at the same time reduce our impact on the planet's resources. If more people are going to experience living in authentic communities, we need more people trained to support people creating community. The 500 Communities program is about training you to become a co-housing professional working in collaborative development. Now, this webinar, on this call, I'll be focusing strictly on the 500 Communities program. If you want to find out more about co-housing in general, you can go to our website at cohousingsolutions.com or the Co-Housing Association website, which also has an enormous amount of information. And I definitely encourage you to read my most recent book, Creating Co-Housing, which chronicles the development of co-housing communities in North America. But for this presentation, I want to talk about the 500 Communities program. The 500 Communities program builds on the way that I've been working as a development consultant. Let me explain. I am generally hired by a co-housing group just getting off the ground. Often, I'm the first consultant they're paying, and hiring me is a big step forward as they move from dream to a real project. I do most of my consulting by conference call and email, traveling as needed. My strength is that I have worked on all aspects of co-housing development, from putting together budgets to living with those budgets to marketing, site search, financing, and managing construction. So I can consult on a wide range of issues. Eventually, it becomes clear that the community needs a paid project manager on the ground locally. I play a critical role in getting local property managers hired by groups. Sometimes it's a member of the group, sometimes it's one of the original Burning Souls, and other times it's a local professional. But it would be so much easier to have trained professionals in the region that have a better understanding of the process ahead and can help work with groups from those earliest stages, let alone actually implementing projects through the whole development process. Also, I want to emphasize that there's also a need for marketing, sales, and community process consultants. So it's not just strictly hardcore project management we're talking here. I founded the 500 Communities programs to fill this void and train professionals to work in collaborative development with me. The program supports the development of sustainable communities that reduce social isolation and use of the Earth's limited resources by creating more co-housing neighborhoods and other types of collaborative developments. Communities that make it easy to live the good life while using less. The program will give you the tools to create a challenging and satisfying career that aligns with your passions. And the program creates a network for us to work collaboratively so we can have greater impact be more successful, and have more fun doing it. Because believe me, that's an important part of working hard. Let's take a closer look at those three considerations. If you want to reduce social isolation and use of the Earth's limited resources, the two things that really drive me, why would you put your energy into co-housing? Well, we've now clearly documented that people living in community use less resources. They drive less, they buy less, they waste less. As just one of hundreds of examples in my own community of 34 homes in Nevada City co-housing, we have only one lawnmower. We can't imagine why we would need more. Co-housing homes use less energy, use less water, use less asphalt. It's easier to have a smaller footprint when you live in community. Also, boomers are reaching retirement age at a rate of 10,000 per day. Wrap your head around that number, 10,000 per day. Boomers have changed societal expectations at every stage of our lives, and we're now changing the way people look at their second type of half a life. Boomers are already driving the current wave of new co-housing neighborhoods, whether they're intergenerational or senior communities. I'm amazed at the number of boomers I talk with that have been following co-housing for years, but it just didn't work for their job or their location, the family, whatever. But now they can move. They're no longer tied to jobs. They can put greater emphasis on creating the kind of place they want to age in. I believe that many boomers retiring over the next decade will bring on a surge of new interest in co-housing. And we're already seeing this with a number of new communities forming. But we desperately need socially sustainable neighborhoods that support aging at home. That are not so car dependent, so you don't lose your whole social life when you can't drive. People love the idea of aging at home, but it needs to be a home that supports healthy aging. And we would also desperately need socially sustainable neighborhoods that support raising kids, where kids have role models of all ages, and where, again, you don't have to drive your kids to play dates. Oh, don't get me going on play dates. Working mother's ultimate nightmare. So people all over the country, I believe, are seeking more socially and environmentally sustainable options, and you can help them realize their dreams. Let's talk about the tools you need to do this work. The program is the first of its kind, built on hands-on, in-the-trenches experience that focuses on learning by doing. Each month, you'll learn critical information you need to move forward with getting a project off the ground. You'll also get one-on-one coaching with me regarding your specific situation. You'll learn how to build on your strengths and how to build your team. My goal is that by the end of the program, each of the participants has instigated a project that will pay for their professional services. You should make back your program cost plus much more with the first project. And if you're committed to doing this, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to create rewarding, interesting work and get paid for doing it. That's not to say it's easy, of course, but it's possible. By working collaboratively, we can have even greater impact. One of the things I've learned over the years is how important it is to have a professional community. Every year, people come out of our workshops excited to go create their own communities, but left on their own, most flame out within the year. I have no doubt that having a professional community with whom you can problem solve, share resources, vent to, and be accountable to will greatly increase your success. One of the great privileges of my own career has been working with Jim Leach of Wonderland Hill Development Company in Colorado. Jim was really my development mentor. And as a successful and innovative residential developer, Jim pioneered how co-housing groups can partner with professional developers, developing over 20 communities in Colorado, California, Arizona, and Washington. One of the valuable lessons I learned from Jim is how the financing and marketing success of a project is directly tied to the social strength of a co-housing group. Together, we've spent years developing systems that strengthen the community during the development process. Not only have Jim and I developed numerous projects together, but we've also spent endless hours drinking wine and debating the intricacies of co-housing development. We agree on many things, disagree on some, but I know Jim will always take my call. And together we have a history and an understanding of co-housing development that I've got someone there I can really talk about the intricacies of any given project or situation. The support and lessons I got from working with Jim are a big part of my inspiration for creating this program. I'm thinking maybe it's my time to become the mentor. You can see here on the slide the wealth of experience of people interested in the program. Some of you are real estate agents, some of you are good at marketing and outreach, some are community organizers, some are developers, some are in construction. To develop a community, you need all of these skills, but few have them all. One of the key features of this program is learning how to build on your strengths and how to build the right team to complement your skills. By working with me, I can back you up as you need. You may even end up partnering with other program participants. In fact, for many of you, co-housing consulting could complement your current work. For instance, someone who's a group process trainer would be able to expand their consulting services with a better understanding of the development process. Annie Russell, one of the great co-housing process trainers I've worked with, also helps groups with marketing and membership. Or a civil engineer that has skills that would make them a great project manager. The work you end up doing with co-housing communities may very well complement your existing work, not replace it. The program gives you skills that can be applied to other types of community development as well. So maybe it's not just co-housing, but shared housing or other types of collaborative work that we can build on the systems that we've developed for co-housing. So just as the success of co-housing communities is based on the idea that you can get more together than you can alone, I believe this is also true professionally, that we will have greater impact by building a team of collaborating consultants that work together. Let me tell you a story from the early days of co-housing in the United States. I learned co-housing development the hard way. Back in 1989, when Chuck Durrett and I were young architects, not even 30, having lived 2 years in Denmark, researching co-housing, then self-published our first book. And when we were just beginning to get the word out about co-housing in the United States, we got a call about a potential property in the Bay Area industrial city of Emeryville. That was the beginning of Doyle Street co-housing. I could tell you a lot of stories about those first projects, but I'll save most of them for when we're having drinks at the co-housing conference bar. But back at Doyle Street, we were actually denied project approval at Planning Commission because of neighborhood opposition. A month later, we were able to overturn that on appeal at City Council. But the very next day, we got a call from our landowner developer telling us that that his other deals weren't going well and that he would no longer be able to secure financing for our project. We needed to find a new developer to take on the project. I hit the streets, and that's how I began to really learn development. I borrowed friends' budget spreadsheets, I cold called developers, I used every resource I could think of to find someone willing to partner to secure financing and build out the project. I've been feeling pretty good about having 7 out of 12 committed households, but as more investment was needed, people started dropping out. Here I was pitching how strongly committed my buyers were, and then I'd lose another one. It all culminated one night in January. We always met at the property in the front office of the old warehouse, which got pretty cold in January. So there we were, huddled around a little portable heaters. The first Gulf War had just started, and I'd just found out that I was pregnant. I had found a new developer builder that was looking pretty promising, and this was his first time meeting the group. By that time, I was down to 5 committed households, And then, in the round of introductions, one woman I thought was really solid said she didn't think it made sense for her any longer. I tried to put up a strong front to move forward with the meeting, but the tears just kept streaming down my cheeks. I was pregnant after all. That didn't help. So it was tough, but somehow we got through it. And that developer stuck with us, and we did get Doyle Street CoHousing built. And in 1992, Chuck and I moved in with a 1-year-old and lived there for 12 years before moving to Nevada City CoHousing in the Sierra foothills. It took experiences like that to learn how to ask people to invest money in an early stage project, and to learn that without money on the line, you really have no idea who is real. I learned development the hard way. How much money people could walk away from, what real commitment looks like, how to find developers, and what it takes to build a successful project. When Chuck and I started 3 decades ago, we were inventing both a market and systems for creating communities in North America. After all, nobody was asking for co-housing back then. But here we are in 2018 with more than 165 communities built in 38 states, and another 140 in the forming stages. I'm currently personally consulting on well over a dozen projects in development. Over the last 3 decades, I've consulted on, designed, or developed over 60 co-housing communities. Having worked with small and large, urban and rural, developer-driven, and group-developed communities, I've learned the keys to building strong, environmentally and financially sustainable neighborhoods. But I've also learned how important it is to have a professional community to brainstorm ideas, to review your drafts, to back you up, to vent to, and to celebrate with. This work can be challenging, and it's important to have fun if you're going to make it sustainable. If we're going to build the next 500 communities during my lifetime, I need help. I need people on the ground that understand collaborative development that I can work with. So let's look at what this program is. I want to build on the lessons learned and systems that we've developed to train people how to initiate and support co-housing communities as paid professionals, working as co-housing project managers and marketing consultants. I want to create a collaborative of co-housing consultants that share best practices, back each other up with complementary skills, and generally support each other in our work. By working together, the participants of the 500 Communities program can do more than we could individually, get paid better for our work, and have more fun, because we've got to keep working that in, don't we? My goal is to get you into a paying project by the end of the year-long program. More people talking about co-housing and facilitating the development of 2 communities will also catalyze many more communities getting off the ground. In turn, these communities, 500 of them, will eventually enable thousands of people to create their dream of living a more sustainable lifestyle. This program will help you reach personal career goals, as well as contribute to the big picture of a more sustainable future. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to jumpstart the program with a 3-day retreat in Nevada City in September. This will allow us to get to know each other face-to-face and visit some of the local communities I'll be referencing during the program. I found in the first 2 classes this retreat was a big hit, and everybody really found it valuable. After that, we'll be meeting 2 times a month online. First in the month, we'll have a monthly curriculum training covering a specific aspect of co-housing development. Then the second call will be a monthly mastermind call where participants share their ideas and challenges, learning from your peers. You'll have access to best practice templates on our exclusive member-only web platform, and you'll have access to each other. It's a small class, a dozen participants at maximum. And in addition to that, you'll also have access to the other affiliates from the previous classes. In addition to my one-on-one coaching. So here's my curriculum outline. Month 1, we talk about building your market, marketing and outreach. Month 2, we talk about how you get paid. So let me just take a moment to talk a little bit about that, because I think this is one of the critical things, is that very few people understand where the money is in the budget and what can be hired elsewhere and how to define your role to take advantage of your strengths. So that's one of the things I'll spend a lot of time with you during the program. As an example, if you're not a developer able to finance projects, or a licensed architect or engineer or attorney, there are really 2 primary line items in a development budget to get paid out of: project management and marketing. In addition to my development consulting services, most projects need a local, on-the-ground project manager. Many communities would love to have assistance with marketing. We'll explore how you can define your services building on your own strengths, with me backing you up on the areas where you're less comfortable, and how we can share the fees built into the project budget. So that's, again, a theme through the project, is not only how to build great communities, but how to make this a sustainable business. Month 3, we talk about site search and project feasibility. How do you negotiate property purchase agreements? Month 4, we talk about how to approach local developers. Why would a developer want to do this? Then we talk again about group formation. How do you actually form a cohesive group and move them into an organized structure? We'd look at budgets, how to set up a budget, how budgets change from different types of communities, different locations. Then it's critical to understand the cash flow to get a project off the ground. How do you build that cash flow? What are some of the investment structures that we have found successful to get money into projects? Month 9, we're back to marketing and membership, training your group to market and integrate new members. Month 10, we talk about working through the entitlement process and the political approvals that any project needs. Month 11, we talk about things that a lot of groups don't think about early on, but are critical to getting competitive mortgages, setting up your projects so you can get Fannie Mae, FHA mortgages, how to deal with appraisals, and the homeowners associations. And then the last month, month 12, we talk about construction management, option and upgrades process systems, and keeping your construction project on budget and time. With the successful completion of the year-long training, participants will be certified by CoHousing Solutions. But it really just gets more interesting after that. Because after you complete the program, you'll be invited to be a CoHousing Solutions affiliate, a part of a team of consultants with access to our member-only website and best practices collection. We'll continue with monthly mastermind conference calls for all the affiliates who continue to share information about our projects in the field in general, so you'll always be on the forefront of sustainable development. In addition, CoHousing Solutions will continue to offer you support moving forward, and you will be contributing your own best practices so that we have the best examples out there for any given situation. CoHousing Solutions will bring you and your projects greater visibility and marketing outreach for your projects, because we'll feature your projects on the CoHousing Solutions website and social media. In fact, I think there's a lot of really interesting cooperative marketing opportunities between the participants in the program and our different projects. For example, we could do a national marketing campaign with a number of different senior co-housing projects at once. Or we could take a number of communities in one region and feature their differences in a regional campaign. So there's some really interesting things there. In addition, we have the CoHousing Solutions database, which continues to grow, especially with Bethany's ongoing social media efforts. So that gives you another resource to get your information out. And after 30 years of doing this, my name and CoHousing Solutions helps to bring your projects national name recognition and credibility. Something that can be very helpful as you're trying to raise money for a project or get financing. So what does it cost? Yeah, there's an investment to do this. But before I go into that, let's look at your other options. You could do nothing. I mean, life goes on. It's not that anybody needs to do this. Why add more work to your plate? So that's always an option. Or you could do like I did. You could spend the next 30 years learning co-housing development the hard way. You could try to do it right on your own. And I have to say, I am continually astounded at the surprising number of communities that have actually gotten built this way. But I'm not sure that they would necessarily recommend it. My goal is to build and improve on the systems that we've already developed over the last 30 years so we can continue to get better and not just reinvent the wheel. Or if you really just want to get your own project built, I think probably the best thing is just to hire me or hire CoHousing Solutions to consult on your project. Let me explain what my basic consulting deal is. I bill at $150 an hour plus an proprietary information fee of 0.5% of the total sales value of a project. So if it's a $10 million project, that would be a $50,000 fee due at construction financing. That's a way that I can keep my fees low when launching a project and help a project build a strong foundation, knowing that if the project is successful, I'll get a fee at the end. So that's a way that I think I've really been able to help groups get launched and get a strong foundation under them as we go. Overall, with most of my projects, I typically own about 1% of the total budget, something between $75,000 and $200,000, depending on how much of the actual implementation I'm doing versus development consulting. It's actually a great deal if you only want to build your own project. So in fact, if that's really why you're listening to the webinar is because you're trying to figure out how to get your project built, I would suggest that perhaps the program's not for you and you just want to talk to us about our consulting services. This program is really built for people who want to do more than one project, who want to look at this as a professional, who want to build more communities in your region or with a particular emphasis. So with the program, you can really invest in yourself and apply for the 500 Communities program and embark on a career where you actually get paid to do this exciting work. Again, my goal is that by the end of the year-long program, you've got a project going that will pay both you and CoHousing Solutions. The program fees include the year-long program. It covers all the handouts, the trainings, the monthly one-on-one consulting, and again, it's a small class. So our applications will be available after May 1st, and then we will be deciding in the middle of June who gets in. The program fee is $9,750,000, due as one payment upon acceptance. So that's the best deal, but we know people have different cash flows, and so if you can't make that work, we can do it in a couple of payments, 2 payments or 4 payments. It's a little bit more to do that, but we can certainly work with you on that. As I mentioned, that covers the entire program. It doesn't cover your travel costs or room and board for the September retreat, but it covers all your access to me with that. So this is perhaps a good place to also mention I expect to give 1 scholarship per year. The scholarship will be based on need, and so that is part of the application process. What I have found is actually committing to the payments also commits you to the program, and that makes it better for everybody participating. And so I want a committed group who's ready to make this work. So, but again, keep in mind that we'll be working together not just through the first year, but should you decide that you're ready to continue with this work for the foreseeable future. I've already graduated 2 classes, and then I took this last year off. So we had a great class in 2015 and another class in 2016. This year, we out of those 2 combined classes, there are now 10 affiliates moving forward with the program. So some people decided it wasn't for them. They wanted to focus on other things, and they haven't moved forward. But we are 10 committed affiliates that are meeting on a monthly basis and really getting interesting and exciting now as their projects start to develop. So as an example, Darrow from the 2015 class is managing the construction for the Fair Oaks Eco-Housing project. He's really in the heart of that right now. John, also from the 2015 class, has now tied up a 3-acre property for his group in Novato in Marin County, north of San Francisco. That's been a very, very difficult area for development. There's always been interest there, but in my 30 years of doing development, co-housing development in Northern California, we were never able to get a viable site there. So it's John now is setting the seeds, not only for this first project, but in that process has identified a couple of other potential projects in that region. Shelley from this year's class is pioneering her marketing and sales workshops. In fact, she just got back from working with the Village Hearth Group in Durham, North Carolina. So these affiliates are doing work now, making contacts, looking for property, building their databases, developing their business systems in ways that will serve not just the immediate project, but is setting the seeds for many more projects in the future. And that's one of the things that really excites me about the program is when you're just focused on building a community for yourself for perfectly understandable reasons, you get it built, you move in, you're done with it. You don't get, and so there's not generally been someone on the ground who can build on, the database, the interests, the contacts that you make on that first project. Another community starts in the same region. A decade later, they're starting from scratch. I think it's the professionals that are the critical link in moving this forward to build those relationships, to build the market, to make it easier for future projects in any given region. So, and also one of the things that's really exciting for me is that these affiliates are bringing in new ideas and approaches, sharing with each other as well as with me. I mean, I think for me, the ultimate challenge is not just how do we build sustainable communities, but how do we build a sustainable business model? I believe it takes a sustainable business model with professionals that can get paid reasonably to support these communities, to scale the community movement. So I hope that you will give applying to the program serious consideration. I know it's not for everyone. I'm really just looking for a few special people who really want to commit to learning how to support the development of sustainable communities. To succeed, you'll need a couple things. First, you'll need to be willing to invest in yourself. That's coming up with the money for the program and finding the time to do it. You've got to have a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit and a can-do attitude to believe that you can launch communities. And realistically, you probably need some other way to pay the rent while you build up interest and get a project started. Because this is, in essence, you're starting your own business working together with me. But it's not going to pay your rent initially. So, and I think, the people who really succeed working with groups often, you need good communication skills. You need a certain amount of patience. You need to know how to lead when the group needs leadership and how to work collaboratively and step back when the group can take it from there. I particularly want to encourage women to consider this. With the first class we had, I would say my only disappointment was a relatively small number of women. Somewhat ironically, most of the communities I'm consulting to have been founded and are often led by women. So I know many women who are really good at this work. The second class was much more balanced gender-wise, and I think that's really benefited everyone. So we'll take a pause here for Q&A. You can type in your questions on the Q&A button on your screen, and I have one from here already. from a Canadian. I know there are a number of Canadians out there that have been looking at the program. So the question is, can you apply these skills regarding the training for a Canadian participant? I think absolutely yes. I've worked on a number of projects in Canada. There, you call things a little bit different, you know, like process instead of process. But I have found that the basic systems are very much in place there. And I think that in general, that would be, that what you'll find is you can build on the best practices. In my ideal world, we would end up over time with a number of affiliates in Canada so that you can also work together on the Canadian special aspects while building on the best practices that we have in North America altogether. So yeah, I do think it would work. And I know we've also had interest from other countries, Australia, New Zealand. Obviously, the cost of traveling from those longer distances for the retreat is bigger. I would not rule that out if you couldn't attend. I would certainly encourage you to consider coming up if you can. One of the other things, just while I'm thinking about it, with the affiliates, we have an ongoing, we really try for a yearly face-to-face meeting, and we often tie it into the conferences. So for example, at the Nashville conference last year and the Colorado conference coming up in April, the 500 Communities affiliates will be meeting the day after the conference as our opportunity to talk more deeply about where is the movement going, what are we working on, and continue our ongoing learning. There's another question here is, what is the smallest class size you foresee as successful? The last two classes I've started with 8 or 9 people. It seems not uncommon to lose somebody along the way for unforeseeable circumstances, so that was a nice size. It's, you know, there's a lot of energy working together, so I'm guessing that probably 6 is about the smallest. We've had a lot of interest this year, and I really feel like the program's gaining momentum. And I'm really looking for people to succeed, so not every applicant gets in, that's for sure. Lynn is asking, after the year-long class, when people are affiliates meeting monthly and collaborating, are there fees associated? Yes, good question. And I'll say there is a follow-up webinar we'll be doing on March 20th. It has a little bit more detail on this. But yeah, there's an annual licensing fee of $1,200. That sort of is a bare bones for us to keep the program organized. My experience is, in order to this be successful, you need to be successful and I need to be successful. And really the money's in the project. So you can't really do very well making a living at this if we can't get successful projects built. So I have kept the licensing fees very low, just $100 a month or $1,200 a year after you go through the program. And that gives you total access to me. I talk to people all the time during the program with no consulting fees. And then we're looking at, you know, how do we split up the fees within any given project? And, you know, we do it a lot of different ways there. So that's the long-term licensing fee to continue to be part of the CoHousing Solutions 500 Communities program. And there's a question of, would it be possible to have support from you in Iceland? Yes, you know, I'd love to go to Iceland. But also, again, most of my work, other than the September retreat, you know, we're doing webinars, we're using Zoom, we use conference calls. I do a lot of consulting with my client groups, also really traveling surprisingly little. I think the challenge for all of you that are outside the United States is just how to adapt this to your specific situation. But I have found, working in a number of different countries, that, again, the process and the systems are pretty similar. So I think there's a lot to be done. And if your option is working with us in the 500 communities or inventing it on your own, I certainly think we can give you a big step forward by coming in through the program. Jay asked, what trends can you identify in project construction financing and long-term takeouts? Are there more players here in California or other places? Well, Don't get me going on that one. So I would say the mortgages has not been a problem. I think co-housing groups often are totally unaware of what they need to do to set up for competitive mortgages, but if you know that stuff, as you'll learn in the program, that tends not to be a problem. I think there's some cutting edge stuff happening and some interesting ideas about, you know, shared housing if you don't actually have separate individual subdivided units, where that is much harder. So unfortunately, construction financing really hasn't gotten that much easier. And that's because of the recession, the worldwide recession we had a decade ago, and that tightening up. But that being said, I think one of the things I have really enjoyed about consulting all across the country and in Canada is seeing all the different ways that construction financing can come together. And I have found that be tremendously helpful. If I'm talking to a bank in Durham, North Carolina, I have a dozen different construction financing scenarios that I help put together on other projects. So, and I find that the bankers really value that experience. How have other banks done it? What have you done in other projects? So that's one of the things I can bring to you in your projects, is a variety of different ways of doing it. Next question is, we have, are there co-housing projects within an eco-village? Yes, there are. You should look at the Ithaca projects, the Hearthstone projects, Hearthstone in Colorado, Silver Sage. You know, I mean, that question kind of gets into a whole question of what is an eco-village. But I think this idea of including projects in master plan projects or larger projects. And I think, you know, for me, I think there's a whole opportunity. There is what I now get to call, this is, you know, you couldn't do this 30 years ago, but now you can call them conventional co-housing. And then there are all the systems and processes we've developed and how they might be adapted to different situations. And I think that is a really interesting question, and something I really look forward to incorporating, and already is part of the 500 Communities program. So just as an example, Megan in this last class, and still working with us as an affiliate, is in the San Francisco Bay Area. And she is looking, you know, at extremely high housing costs there. And how do we take what we've learned with co-housing communities to do smaller retrofit projects where, you know, you might be dividing a large house into suites or condos and maybe adding a cottage or some units in the back. How do we use existing housing stock to create smaller communities that are more affordable to people? So I think, you know, there's some very interesting things happening now with the sort of We Live or micro units. And I think all of those different examples have a lot to learn from co-housing. And I am anxious to work with people on how we might do that. Lynn asked, in your experience, what percentage of co-housing are resident initiated versus developer initiated? Oh, well, really rough off the top, I'd say about half and half. And you know, one of the issues we're really facing is that the developers are gone away. So there was a time where there were 3 of us, which what I call the repeat developers of co-housing: myself here in California, Jim Leach in Colorado, and Don Tucker in the Washington, D.C. area. Don and Jim are retiring, and I am no longer actually, I'm working as a development consultant rather than actually initiating projects. But what I have seen coming out of my consulting and now really dovetailing with the 500 Communities program is a new model, which I think has much greater long-term applicability in a wide range of circumstances. And that is where a consultant like myself or yourselves is working with a group to get them real, to get them to understand what it's really going to cost, to get organized, to get their membership process, to learn how to market, so that they can then partner with a more traditional developer in your region. That I think the future is not in co-housing developers as specialists, but in working with a program like the 500 Communities program, that we can help get groups up to a point and then help put that marriage together to find those partnerships with other professionals and with developers in your area. So in my own consulting work, some of the groups are their own developers and they don't partner with a professional developer, and others, that's part of my role, is finding professional developers for them to partner with and helping to put that together. So I think it opens up a lot more opportunities there. Magdalena asked, does the curriculum cover modifications or customizations of the co-housing approach to be more affordable? Yeah, I actually came out of the affordable housing world. My first job out of architecture was as a tenant organizer in Section 8 housing in San Francisco. And I think, I would say our ongoing frustration for most of us that work in co-housing and in housing in general is just how expensive housing has gotten. So you will not find me overly optimistic on this particular topic. And on the other hand, I think you'll find me really real and very much interested in helping communities figure out how to make it more affordable and helping you focus your efforts on things that might actually come to something. And then I think we'll take, this is the last question I'll take, is Sandra's, that says, do you find that one of the initial hurdles underway is convincing city planners about the benefits of co-housing? Well, actually, city planners are the least of our issues. City planners often have studied co-housing now. They came across it during their graduate school studies. For many city planners, co-housing is why they went to planning school. I mean, they love the idea. We are actually implementing the kinds of things that many planners are really driven to do that. So no, I don't find city planners a particular issue. Neighbors and the education process and helping people understand perhaps the more traditional issues with planning departments is just bureaucracies, and they get tied into how to, if we do it for you, can we do it for others? But so I don't think city planners are so much a big hurdle. But again, the tremendous strength that I have found in my consulting services and what I want to share with those in the program is examples of how it's been done in other places. When you can walk into a planning department and reference other successful projects and how they worked with the planning department or how they solved this problem, it gives everybody we're working with, planning departments, banks, future buyers, much more confidence that we've got something that really works, because we can point to actual working communities. So I'm going to move forward and just sort of wrap up the webinar now. If you've got more questions, please feel free to contact Bethany, send them in. And we will have a couple of opportunities where back on the webinar before the applications are due. So let me just first point out that there are a number of ways that you can explore further if this might be for you. If you haven't read the co-housing books or maybe haven't looked at them for a while, I would encourage you to take another look at those. Particularly in creating co-housing, I wrote the development chapter in there, and it'll give you sort of a better sense of my approach to things. So you can get those from McCamant and Direct Architects or Amazon. There is, this year, the primary conference for co-housing conference will be the regional conference in Boulder in April. Both Bethany and I will be there. I will be giving a session on the 500 Communities program. But if you have any interest in coming to that, I'd like to encourage you to do that. And if you come, please make sure to introduce yourself. So there is, if there are communities in your region you haven't visited or haven't visited for a while, I would encourage you to take another look at them, check in on them. This is the third year that the National Association is hosting National Co-Housing Open House Day on April 29th. We try to get as many communities around the country to have open houses on the same day. It's a great opportunity to bring people in and show them the great lifestyle we've created. I know for for my community here in Nevada City, we just feel like we've got this little paradise, and most people don't realize what a great way it is to live. So trying to be more public about inviting people in. So that's a great opportunity to go visit communities in anywhere in the country. And you can find more information about that on the cohousing.org website. So, and then I think, is really making time in your life to commit time and resources to train as a professional. So if this program sounds like a good fit for you or something you'd really like to explore, get your resume in early. That's the first step, as you send a resume to Bethany. The applications aren't up yet, but they will be by the 1st of May. So you can send in your application. It is a competitive process to get in the program, so I would urge you to spend some time and effort in the application process. As I say, I'm not just selling tickets. I'm looking for a few good people that really want to commit to how do we take this to the next step. We will also have a follow-up webinar on March 20th. It is for people who have seen this first webinar specifically and get a little bit more detail about the fees and how one can structure future collaborations with CoHousing Solutions. And we'll keep in touch with you through the 500 Communities Program email list. So all of you should already be on that. If not, just go to our website. But if you signed up for this, we should have your email. As I say, you can email questions into Bethany. We may not be able to respond individually, but we'll try to respond in our upcoming communications. And if after the second webinar you still have questions, again, reach out again. Perhaps next year isn't the time for you to do this. But if you're still interested, stay in touch, because I expect this to be an ongoing program that continues to grow. I may not offer it every year, but I definitely see it growing. And like I say, seeing how the juice is really getting going between the two classes now has been really inspiring. If you don't think it's for you, maybe you know someone else, and we really appreciate you spreading the word. So here we go in wrap up. So here's the basic timeline for the next class. We'll be accepting applications from May 1 to June 11th. We'll send out an email notification when the applications are ready for you. We will then make decisions in July. By the end of July, you'll have heard whether you've gotten accepted or not. And then that third weekend in September will be the in-person gathering retreat in Nevada City for those accepted in the program. So you can hold that date. So that hopefully will gives you an idea of what the program is. I think to make sustainable living options available to the millions of people that need and want them, we need to scale. Scaling co-housing communities across the country and other countries is going to take a network of professionals that understand how to work with a group. We need this work to last beyond any one person or group. And we don't want to build just any old neighborhoods. We want to build the best, most sustainable communities possible. This will take serious work, but we can do it. So imagine yourself as a co-housing professional being part of creating the next 500 communities. Might this be the opportunity you've been waiting for? Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll have a recording of this available. Bethany will be setting out. And do circle back and join us again on March 20th for more as we dive into greater details. Have a great day.